I don't know. I'm really like tempted just to from Twitter, to be honest. I feel just I have to, because everyone else does it. Although I'm not really sure what the benefit is. This, maybe I should just leave Twitter. It would like, I don't have any other social media. It. Today's video is brought to you by Squarespace. More on them in just a little bit. Hello, one and all. Welcome to a brand new episode of Brain Blaze. As always, I'm your revered host, Simon. Welcome to the show. What happens here? Danny writes me a script. I'm going to read it. Oh yeah, Sam is also going to edit it. Sorry, Sam. I didn't forget your name. I don't know why. I just hesitated. I make a lot of videos. It gets confusing. This is all about huge social networks that we all forgot about. Let's go. Friendster. Danny, no one forgot about Friendster. You don't have a Friendster account anymore? I love Friendster doesn't exist, does it? It's like you go to Friendster.com or whatever. It's just going to be one of those, this domain's for sale. Although MySpace is still around, isn't it? I've heard for a while that for people, musicians use MySpace to like share music and stuff. Does that really still happen? Is that still a thing? I think that was like what MySpace did for 10 years after MySpace ceased to really be a thing. The first social media platform you ever used is likely to reveal a big clue as to your age. Some of you might think mine was MySpace. Pretty sure it was MySpace. Maybe it was Did I even have a MySpace account? Maybe it was Facebook. Shit. Some of you might not have been around in the days before MySpace, when dinosaurs and cavemen and the Rolling Stones still ruled the earth. Some of you might be old enough to remember the very early days of the universe when people were still using Classmates or Friends Reunited. I do remember when these came out, but I was like, yo, I'm at like school. My classmates and friends are already here. I don't need to be reunited with anyone. I'm too young. As for myself, I'm far too young to remember anything that happened before Snapchat. Oh, really, Danny? Oh, are you? But how many people remember Friendster? Launched before Facebook, Twitter, and even MySpace, this grandfather of the social networks spent several years near the very top of the social media tree, attracting over 115 million users at its peak. And just like many people's grandfathers, now it's dead. And yet today, it is as if Friendster never existed at all. It was rumoured that the heartbroken Canadian programmer Jonathan Abrams launched Friendster in 2003 purely as a handy way of searching for good-looking women after getting dumped by his long-term girlfriends. Isn't that also what Mark Zuckerberg did? Wasn't he? I'm just basing this on that movie, The Social Network, that I saw like 10 years ago and I've largely forgotten, even though I've seen like 3 times. But there was something like that, right? Oh, I was rating people's attractiveness. That's it. Strange, all these social media networks come from this same place. Computer geeks looking to get women or rate women. Where am I going with this? I don't know, but it is a bit weird, isn't it?
That's a 10.
It's a rumor that he later denied, possibly because it made him sound both sad and a little bit creepy at the same time. Yeah, I mean, if that was just a rumor, I'd be like, no, wasn't like that. Show me some proof. Definitely didn't do that. Definitely did it. Don't look. Oh, don't look at my old computer. I mean, we know it was true for Mark Zuckerberg. Didn't he keep a blog about it? He was blogging about doing it at the time. Mark, what are you doing? Don't write down your crimes. Come on now. But whatever the inspiration, Friendster is widely regarded as the pioneering digital blueprint which other social media platforms were destined to build upon. Launched in California in 2003, Friendster gave users the opportunity to create comprehensive profiles with images and share messages and content with other contacts. Novel. I mean, it was novel, wasn't it? It's like, really? It took us this long to come up with this? I guess it was all separate, right? We had like, that place that you could upload your images on Google. Picasso was that it? Where you can like share your photos and stuff like back in the day? It was essentially a primitive early version of Facebook, but without the all-important news feed. And the early signs for Friendster looked very promising for Jonathan. The site had attracted 3 million users within just a couple of months, and that was enough to arouse the interest of Google, who offered to buy Friendster from Jonathan in exchange for $30 million worth of Google shares. Oh my God, can you imagine what those Google shares are worth today? It's going to be a lot more than $30 million. And I get the feeling he's not going to take it and Friends is going to collapse. And I've brought it up many times on this show, but the exit of MySpace Tom, where, everyone's like, there was a famous tweet at him where he's like, he says something about, he comments on some internet thing about terms of service on like Instagram or whatever, and he's like, no one cares about this. And someone comments on that post being like, yeah, why should we care what you say, Tom? You couldn't even keep a social network together. And MySpace Tom just replies, actually, I sold MySpace for $270 million while you are sitting at work hoping for a half day off. It's like, savage, Tom. It's the motherfucking Eagle Double G. Snoop Dogg. It's like my favorite internet moment. And I talked to a friend of mine years later. I've told this story before. I'm sorry for repeating myself. I talked to a friend of mine years later, and he was like, the best thing about this dude, and he works like a classic city office job. He's like, the bit about half day off is just so on the nose that that's why it's even better than you think it is, Simon. And I'm like, God damn. Genius. Funnily enough, Jonathan very nearly acquired Facebook when his new rival first emerged on the scene. It's reported that Mark Zuckerberg was very interested in an undisclosed offer, but changed his mind at the last minute when Facebook suddenly began to explode in popularity. If Jonathan's timing had been a little bit better, things might have been very different. And of course, the rival of MySpace and Facebook posed a big problem for Friendster as it had been lagging behind the fresh competition. It posed a particularly big problem for Jonathan, who ended up getting ousted from his own company by the board of directors in 2004. However, he's still going to own a lot of the company, right? Because he's just been ousted as director, but they can't take all of his shares away. So please tell me that they sold it, and he just got, at least tell me he got rich. Come on. I want a happy ending for him. I want him to have got rich. Come on.
Rich.
I bet he now regrets telling Google to stuff it. Those shares will be worth about $1 billion today. Well, there we go. That's how much the 30 million. Holy shit, dude. Woo, Billy. That's a lot.
Help me, I'm poor. No.
Many users pointed out at the time that the content moderation on Friendster was way too strict. If you think the content moderation on Facebook is getting a bit harsh, does anyone really think that? Facebook's a fucking show. You really wouldn't like Friendster, where even your profile picture would fall foul of the censors if it happened to be, say, a goofy picture of a hamster. The emerging rival platforms were seen as the new chilled-out kids in the hood, while Friendster began to feel more like a school detention. Honestly, it sounds a lot better than Facebook, though, doesn't it? Facebook's such a steaming pile of shit. I really hate Facebook, mostly because there's just lots of people stealing my and uploading it to Facebook and getting paid. Well, I haven't ever got paid from Facebook. Not a single cent. Despite this, Friendster was continuing to pull in millions of new users, but the problem was that their servers couldn't cope with the overload. For a period of 2 years, the site was a sluggish nightmare to navigate with little in the way of rewards. That's not good, guys. Your website needs to load quickly. That's like basic shit. Yo, guys, brand new sponsor I gotta tell you about, Squarespace. Not really. Squarespace are like the longest, most loyal subscriber on this channel, and honestly, all my channels, and I absolutely love them for it. They're keeping the dream alive. They're helping me keep my gigantic studio lights on, and they're helping you honestly live the dream. Look, I don't know about you, but I always have ideas. I got like random things going on, like, oh my god, I should do that. That is genius. That is the best thing I've ever heard of. And look, if it involves a website, I'm always like, just go to Squarespace, get it set up. It's incredible. I don't know what your idea could be. Whether you're passionate about something, you've got something you're super into, I don't know. Maybe you love sports and you want to talk about sports on a blog. Or they also do shops, like you could set up an online store with Squarespace, which is amazing. Maybe there's something you want to sell. Well, when you've got that idea in your head, what you do is you go to squarespace.com, and then you got two options. One, you could use one of their beautiful templates and just make a website that immediately, it takes about 5 minutes. You click on it and then you just adjust the title and you put in an image and boom, 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 and you're good to go. And you have like a professional website that is publishable and good to go and fast and runs smoothly. All of this in 5-10 minutes, maybe realistically a few hours if you're doing like everything and getting it all done. Or if you've got design skills, it's super customizable, so you can change it up however you want to. And once you've done that, there's tons of extra options. They've got a list for me that I feel like I should definitely have memorized by now, but I haven't. Email campaigns, patronage portals, social integrations, member-only areas, analytics, commercial options, 24/7 customer support. Everything you want is in one place. You're not even going to need that customer support because it's just so easy to do. But, it's just nice to know that it's there. So when you're ready to get started on the next web project of yours, big or small, if it involves a website, it's got to be Squarespace. Go to squarespace.com for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch your new site, go to squarespace.com/blaze and you'll save 10% off your first purchase of a website or a domain. There's a link below. Brilliant stuff. Thank you, Squarespace. Back to the video. At one point, it was taking an average of 40 seconds just to load a single page. No one's went around for that. CEOs were playing a game of musical chairs whilst this was going on, and the solution to the technical issues appeared to involve just banging on completely new unnecessary features to slow down the experience even more. Just get some faster computers or some more bandwidth or whatever technical need to worry about. Do that Cloudflare thing. I know what, you know when you go to a website, it's like Cloudflare, and it's like, what? Where's my website? What is this Cloudflare thing? Apparently Cloudflare is like this thing they use to make websites load faster or something, although sometimes it makes websites not load at all, which is frustrating. You're like, hello Cloudflare. Refresh. Goodbye Cloudflare.
Okay.
A disastrous redesign in 2009 was the final nail in the coffin for Friendster in the United States, although the site remained hugely popular in Asia for a few more years. It ultimately evolved into a social gaming platform based in Malaysia. Holy shit. Before finally drifting into obscurity and closing the doors forever in 2018. It was in Malaysia? Why? Where did you get? It was really popular in Malaysia and people just love playing games there. Well, that's a pivot, isn't it? Long before that, the company's suite of social networking patents had been sold for $40 million in 2010 to none other than Mark Zuckerberg. He got paid. It's not a billion, though, is it? The same man who just a few years earlier had come very close to handing over his titchy new Facebook to the once mighty Friendster. Next up, Eons. It's perfectly understandable if you don't remember much about the intriguing Eons platform. No, I don't. I remembered Friendster. I'd never been on it. I don't know anything about it. Well, I mean, now I do, but at least I'd heard of it. Eons. Isn't that just a really long period of time? It's understandable if you don't remember much about this, unless you were over the age of 50 at the time. They wouldn't have let you through the door. Jeff Taylor, the founder of Monster.com, first came up with the idea of a MySpace for boomers in 2006. Did he really call it that? I thought boomer, I mean, of course there were the baby boomers. That's been around forever. But did people actually call them boomers? Such a good term, boomer. I'm not a boomer, I'm 35, even though sometimes, mentally I'm a boomer. In my ways, I definitely feel I don't know, just a little bit boomy.
Okay, boomer.
He felt that the economically powerful group of people over the age of 50 were getting completely overlooked by this fizzy young world of social media, and Eons was intended to redress that balance by refusing to let any snotty little kids in. I mean, on the face of it, it doesn't actually sound like a bad idea, does it? I mean, I know I realized the other day it was a bit sad. I was just looking through my analytics, and I always thought the age group in the back end of YouTube, they tell you who's watching, not specifically. Don't worry, except for you, Peter. Hello. They tell you what age group watches your video. And my biggest age group, I always thought was 18 to 35. And I'm like, cool, I'm in my demographic, and I've always been in my demographic. And then I looked recently, it was 18 to 34, and I recently turned 35, and it's like, oh, I see, I'm no longer in my demographic, which is weird. Soon my videos are going to be all very out of touch and get off my lawn, and all of you guys are going to leave me for some hip young kid, possibly on TikTok. Thank you for watching. Not really, let's carry on. Or any snotty-nosed 49-year-olds, for that matter, launched under the slogans of living the biggest life possible and let's live to be 100 or die trying. Hilarious. Eons received tens of millions of dollars from presumably older investors who thought that this was going to be the best thing since the invention of the saxophone. Some old people isn't it, Danny? Users could share content and join groups devoted to topics with specific relevance to more mature people, which apparently includes stuff about going for walks, swimming with dolphins, how to quit smoking, Christianity, healthcare, and over 50s kinky sex. That's that's a Pornhub category, isn't it? Right there. It's going to be on there. You're going to be able to not search for that, but there's going to be a category over 50s kinky sex. Uh-oh.
I'm a virgin. No.
Not that there's anything wrong with that. You be you. It's all this old person I mean, swimming with dolphins, that's pretty cool, though. That's just not for old people. I feel like I'm not particularly interested in swimming with dolphins, but I feel like up until the age of 12, I'd be extremely interested in swimming with dolphins, and then apparently over the age of 50 again. It's an interesting demo. Swimming with dolphins groups. How to quit smoking. Oh, by the time you're 50, it's too late. Just carry on. You're going to die. You're obviously not one of the people who's going to be affected by it, are you? That's a joke. You should probably quit smoking.
No, I don't think I will.
It's maybe not too surprising that one of the more popular areas of the site was the frequently updated obituary database, but the site never really hobbled its way to success in quite the way Jeff had hoped, attracting a peak audience of 800,000 users and hemorrhaging several $1 million along the way to its own memorial service. In 2012, the young are usually the first to adopt and embrace and share an exciting new network, and an older audience weren't going to be quite so quick off the mark when it comes to spreading the word in the playgrounds. No, what you got to do is do like what Facebook did. Start young. It's mental. I first got Facebook when I was 18. I am now 35. I mean, Facebook became for old people by being around so long. And it's mental to... oh my God, I do feel like university was a really fucking long time ago sometimes. Like, I remember starting university and it doesn't feel that long ago in my mind. But it was a long time ago. It's almost going to be like 20 years in a few years, which is mad. Absolutely mad. Oh my God, I'm sounding so old right now. Just know, like, young people watching this, at some point this will happen to you, and it'll happen faster than you think, you know? God, that's intense. I mean, I feel like I've done a lot in those years, which has been quite nice. Someone added up how many videos I'd made the other day. It's like 6,000. I'm like, fucking hell. That's a lot. That's a lot. Have I done anything? I guess. Oh my God, let's carry on before I get all depressed. Any natural growth and expansion was always going to be hampered by the incredibly restrictive age limit, as the vast majority of the population weren't invited to join in the fun. I'm not sure how that was even policed, though. Unless they asked you to post a copy of your birth certificate, I'd imagine that the most potential young sign-ups would know a shrewd way to navigate past the "Are you over 50" button. I was just watching a video the other day about how TikTok is a piece of this, and there was an experiment done, and they found out that toddlers could, 4 to 5 year olds could work out how to access TikTok. Like, they could get a phone, they could download TikTok, they'd have this little check saying, "Are you over 13?" And they'd just be like, yeah, they could work that out and access TikTok. And apparently it's rotting their brains. I do think this, like, swipey stuff. I just also saw that, this will be so out of date, but Hank Green, OG YouTube Hank Green, released this video about how swipe culture is really damaging. I'm about halfway through it. It was supposed to be his keynote at VidCon, but he got COVID. And then the other, I watched a video about how swiping on TikTok is just ruining, like, people's, not attention spans, but just, like, I mean that, and also, like, funneling them into groups, which makes them depressed. And I'm like, oh my God. The internet's become really evil. I mean, not the internet itself, but like these companies, and then it's like TikTok. And then the video is like, yeah, don't forget, all that owned by the Chinese government. Guess what? The Chinese version of TikTok's completely different. It's like, this is terrifying. And then I realized, I was like, oh my God, I do have TikTok on my phone. It's not logged in. I don't have an account. I mean, I do have, I think, like 3 accounts, because as creators, you end up with like so many. I've got like 19 Google accounts. It's a mess. I'm just like, what was I talking about? It doesn't matter. Let's just move on. Other than I deleted TikTok fairly sharpish. But I think Jeff was maybe wrong in his assumption that lots of people over the age of 50 are only interested in talking to other people over the age of 50. When the pensioner One-Leg Dave signs up to Facebook, he could potentially chat with his children and grandchildren and other young relatives and enjoy a conversation buzzing with the joy of youth. When One-Leg Dave signs up to Eons, he can only chat to people over the age of 50. He might as well just hop down to his favourite table at the Pig's Droopy Testicle and play dominoes with his usual cronies. Eons responded to the disappointing figures in 2008 by reducing the age limit to 40. Okay. It doesn't really sound like it's tackling the real problem with your business, though, does it?
You were the chosen one! It was said that you would destroy this, not join them!
As in their final act of desperation, they later dramatically reduced the age limit to 13, much like TikTok. This was an utterly useless move, as nobody in their right minds are going to join a social media community designed for their grandparents. And at the same time, Eons had now removed the sole USP of the platform and seriously pissed off the small audience who had actually liked the idea of a youngster-free zone. One previously loyal member revoked his membership with the words, "Have you read some of the stuff that comes out of these kids' mouths? Where are their parents? They must not give a hoot. I, for one, do not wish to deal with it." And he probably followed that up by shouting, "Get off my lawn." Back in the early days of Eons, Jeff Taylor himself would have been regarded as one of those potty-mouthed kids. At the age of 45, he wasn't even old enough to join his own site, that silly little sausage. But the good news is that the over 50s can today enjoy exclusively all senior social media fun and games with another little site called Facebook. Yes, like I said, that's exactly what Facebook just, like, now I'm like, Facebook's for old people, right? I feel like young people are on TikTok and probably even other platforms I haven't even heard of. I went to VidCon, and VidCon gets 2 mentions in today's episode, like a few years ago. And it was just when TikTok was kicking off and everyone was talking about TikTok. And I was like, yeah, TikTok. I had no idea what TikTok was. There was like a TikTok lounge and all of this stuff. And I'm like, what is this? Who are all these people? What is this tickety-talk you speak of? Meerkat. It's possible. Oh, I remember this. This was around when I was first starting on YouTube. And it was popular for a while. It was really popular. Is it possible that the likes of Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram will one day get toppled from their thrones and replaced by shiny new social media platforms in the future? Hasn't this already been happening? Like, I know that YouTube and TikTok are not exactly social media platforms, but they also... There's a lot of social stuff going on there. There's like people responding to each other's videos, there's comments, there's community, there's all of this stuff. Like I say, I don't really do social media other than Twitter, which I don't even really like. I don't know. I'm really like tempted just to from Twitter, to be honest. But sometimes it's rewarding. But most of the time I'm just like, why am I wasting my life on here? Why am I bothering? It just, I don't know. I just, whatever. I just like making videos. I don't want to like do all this social media bullshit. I feel just I have to. Because everyone else does it. Well, I'm not really sure what the benefit is. This, maybe I should just leave Twitter. It would lie. I don't have any other social media. It. Perhaps surprisingly, some experts have suggested that the answer is probably not. Really? We might have witnessed the rise and surprising fall of several big hitters in the changing social media landscape since the late 1990s, but we've seen little change at the very top over the last decade. Part of the problem with moving over to a new social media platform is that unless you can convince your friends and followers to take the plunge with you, it's going to end up pretty quiet and lonely over there on the new Enron bus. Most people just can't really be asked to start again from scratch and prefer to stick with the audience they've already connected with on the all-dominating Facebook and Twitter, and we could potentially see a decline in the use. Oh, also, I closed my Facebook account ages ago, and then I accidentally logged in, and I was like I went to Facebook, and the password filler like must have filled it in or whatever, and it's like hello, and I'm like, what is this? I deleted this. Why am I back on Facebook? And then Facebook's like, oh yeah, if you just try to log into your account, we'll reactivate it for you, and I'm like, oh f***ing sakes, and then I had to like deactivate, and I was really hesitant to delete it just in case, I downloaded like my photos from back in the day and I was like, that's nice nostalgia, isn't it? And even though I like keep all my photos like backed up from back in the day, but I'm like, it's just nice nostalgia. And then I was like, oh, I gotta deactivate this again, don't I? So I was like, okay, why Facebook? Why? I know it's because you're like, oh, that's an active user. That is good for advertisers and shit. You dicks. And we could potentially see a gradual decline in use of social media anyway, as everyone wisens up to the idea that it's little more than a time-draining, soul-sucking, hate-fueling distraction with little in the way of reward. Danny, mate, same page. When users gradually drift away from Facebook, they won't necessarily be looking for a similar replacement, but another big problem is that even when somebody does come up with an amazing new game-changing idea, the big guns can just copy it and casually push the original innovators out of the picture. Meerkat was a prime example. Whilst the mobile app launched in 2015 and it certainly didn't invent live streaming, it made it simpler and more effective than ever before to stream your live content directly from your phone. Meerkat users were encouraged to connect their accounts to Facebook and Twitter and broadcast live streams to their army of followers who could comment or send messages in real time. Which is something you could totally do on YouTube, maybe even Twitter, Facebook for sure. The app managed to raise $12 million in venture capital funding and was briefly touted far and wide as the next big step in social media. There's lots of places that have tried this. Like, does anyone still use Clubhouse? That was huge for a minute. Huge. I remember even being in Clubhouse and being like, this is quite neat. And then I just stopped using it like you do. And so what are the other ones? There's been a few. For sure. I don't even remember them because they're just like so forgettable. But the issue was that Meerkat was almost totally reliant on Twitter and Facebook, and literally just a few weeks after launch, Meerkat's access to the Twitter API was heavily restricted, which really pissed off Meerkat's scorpions. What? Okay. Twitter had just invested $86 million in a similar live streaming app called Periscope. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not thinking of Meerkat. I have heard of Meerkat, and I knew it was like Periscope, but Periscope is totally the one I'm thinking of. Didn't that also not work out? I definitely remember Periscope more. and they didn't want any meerkats getting in the way of their new toy. Meanwhile, Facebook was working on the development of Facebook Live, which would quickly render Meerkat extinct. The moral of the story is that if you want to come up with a new innovative idea for social media, don't go it alone or try to compete with the big bullies who don't play fair. That really sounds like it's anti-competitive, doesn't it? Just make sure you're the first one to sell it to Zuckerberg or Twitter. These rules still apply even if you're as big as an apple. iTunes Ping. It's a bit surprising that Apple never really got to grips with social media, considering their almost impeccable techie record. Let's pretend the Apple Newton was just a fever cheese dream. You would have expected Apple to develop something a bit more profitable than a pig's ear out of their sorry attempts to get sociable. They even had a head start when they launched their most promising attempt, Ping, in 2010. Does anyone remember this? I don't remember this at all. The social app was from Apple. The social app was integrated into the 10th edition of iTunes, which activated... Well, maybe I did... God, if I do, it is the vaguest of memories, Apple. 10th edition of iTunes, which boasted around 160 million active users at the time, and Ping sounded pretty funky on first spin. The new inbuilt social component to iTunes naturally had music at its very core. Users could follow friends and artists and share their favourite banging tunes with their own followers. It sounds a bit like a 21st century version of old mixtapes they used to spend ages compiling for your largely ungrateful and uncultured buddies who apparently didn't even like Kajagoogoo. Okie dokie. I remember I used to love... Me and my mates always used to use MSN Messenger. I know a lot of people used AIM. I think that was another big one. But everyone was on MSN Messenger. And we'd all get home from school and we'd all be like doing our homework and chatting to each other on MSN Messenger. And then it was like, hey, you can share what music you're listening to. And this was back in the day when it was like everyone just pirate. Allegedly everyone was just like, yeah, let's pirate the out of everything. And... not that I did, obviously this was just my mates. And, it would show up and you'd be like streaming, you'd listen to pirate music and it would just have some like crazy name with like High Q, HQ, Turbo Rip, and then the name of who uploaded it by like Skullface Turbo 101 or whatever. And you'd be like, okay. But you knew what song it was. Love that shit. Steve Jobs himself described Ping as Facebook and Twitter meets iTunes, but it's also something else. It's all about music. Launched to much fanfare and celebrity endorsement from the likes of Lady Gaga and Chris Martin and Coldplay, the early reports and reviews from websites such as Business Insider and Wired sounded pretty upbeat. The Giga, that is really hard to pronounce, Gigaom company. Guys, when you're coming up with a company name, just try and say it out loud, and if it sounds terrible, don't do it. Just be like, Gigaom. No. Which specializes in delivering expert opinion on startups and emerging technology, went as far to declare that Ping is the future of social commerce. They must have been listening to the wrong side of the record, though. The main issue with Ping is that it was built around the concept of sharing music, yet you couldn't really share the music. Well, you could, but only in 90-second previews, accompanied by a strong encouragement from Apple to purchase the full song or album from the artist's entire back catalog. It sounds like, when you're listening to a YouTube video and someone hasn't paid for the music, and it's like,
do, Audio Jungle, do, Audio Jungle. Oh, you got this in Audio Jungle.
Oh, I don't think you can use the music and just leave the watermark in, or the audio mark or whatever it's called in. I don't think that's okay. It's a bit like following somebody on Twitter but only being able to see the first few characters of their tweet before being asked for money to unlock the rest of it. And it felt as if your friends were badgering you with Apple-endorsed advertisements to purchase music from iTunes rather than sharing valuable content. Apple seemed to appear to overlook the social side of social media and instead opted for a blatant sales tool in which your friends bombarded you with buy it now buttons. Funnily enough, the initial plan for Ping was to feature integration with Facebook, which would have made it a lot easier for users to hook up with friends, but Steve Jobs later stated that he couldn't agree to Facebook's onerous terms. Despite this, Apple cheekily launched Ping with Facebook integration anyway until Zuckerberg swiftly restricted access to the platform's API. By 2012, Ping was just a distant, forgotten echo. 2 years, guys, that's not long. And you're Apple. You could have kept, I feel like, what was it, Google Plus. They kept with that for too long, though. Because they're Google, they just keep pumping money into it. Good for you, Apple, know where to cut your losses. And Apple eventually decided the best approach for getting more sociable with iTunes was to just basically, surrender and offer iTunes integration with Facebook and Twitter. Now that's a tune that sounds hauntingly familiar. Yes, except Facebook and Twitter don't sell music, so it kind of worked out for everybody. Hey! Then Spotify came along and I have Apple Music, but just because I get it for free, because it seems like every time you buy... Why do I have it for free? I thought I got Apple TV for free. Every time you buy something new for Apple, they're like, hey, you want this for free? And I'm like, sure. And I remember we're going to charge you afterwards. And I'm like, no, you're not, because I've used a disposable Visa card. Thank you very much for watching. This was Brain Blaze. I'm Simon, written by Danny, edited by Sam. And we'll all see you next time.
Do Audio Jungle. Do Audio Jungle. Oh, you got this in Audio Jungle.